Workers of fast food, tell us about the worst cases at work. I was 16, working on the front line, standing at the register. A man came up, and instead of placing an order, he started telling me about how his daughter was studying to become a veterinarian. I smiled and responded with something like, "Wow, that sounds great." His response, "Yes, she has achieved something in her life. Unlike you." What a jerk. I own a diner myself. Among my former employees are two guys with PhDs, nurses, an editor of a major magazine, teachers, businessmen, and other successful people. Many talented people started working in fast food. In the 5 months I worked at our diner, no one ever changed the oil in the fryer. By the time I quit, it was almost black. Needless to say, I never ate anything cooked in it. I worked at McDonald's. My shift partner dropped an entire tray of burgers, picked them up off the floor, and put them back on the tray. Then he distributed them according to the orders. If you've ever worked at McDonald's, you know how clean the floors are there. Lol. I haven't eaten at McDonald's since, and it's been 8 years. I worked at McDonald's while I was in school. I saw a guy get fired, and in retaliation, he activated the Ansel system, a fire suppression system that sprays everything with blue foam. Within seconds, the whole kitchen was covered in foam. It was everywhere. We had to close and clean up until 3 in the morning. The guy turned out to be quite a jerk. I worked as a waitress in a pizzeria. Once, an elderly couple called me over and started shouting across the entire place that there was a piece of metal in their pizza. They kept yelling while I apologized and offered to make them a new pizza, explaining that I had no idea how it got there. After several minutes of shouting, the old man quieted down and said, "Oh, it looks like my filling fell out." They tried to joke about it afterward and behaved nicely, but I really wanted to tell them off for their behavior. At 15, I got a job at McDonald's. It was my first job. The worst moment was when one of my colleagues slipped near the fryer and, trying to grab onto something, accidentally dunked his arm up to the elbow in the oil. My holy shit could be heard throughout the restaurant. When I worked as a manager at a well-known diner, one customer overdosed in our bathroom and died. Management ordered me to close the dining area and keep only the drive-thru open. For a while after that, it felt very strange to use that bathroom. I worked at McDrive. I handed a drink to a driver through the window. Some idiot in the back seat threw a large Powerade bottle at me. I was soaked. My manager saw it and said, "If you ask to leave early because of this, I'll fire you." I should have hugged the manager and said, "Don't even think about leaving early today, okay?" This incident was the last straw. I'd wanted to change jobs for a while. During my next shift, I handed in my resignation. I had a short stint at a major fast food chain. I swear, no one there ever cleaned the soda machine. After my first shift, I removed the nozzles from which the drinks are poured and was shocked at how much mold was on them. It was everywhere. Our manager said they didn't need cleaning because the constant flow of liquid kept them self-cleaning. Bullshit. After that, I stopped drinking soda at McDonald's and other fast food restaurants. I used to work as a pastry decorator at a bakery in a grocery store. We made cakes and put them in boxes for customers to take and pay for at the register. One time, 2 kids, one about 6, the other around 8, ran up to our department and started throwing cakes on the floor. It looked like they were celebrating the floor's birthday. By the time I ran over and snatched the box from their hands, 5 cakes had been destroyed. Out of nowhere, their mom appeared, took them by the hands, and led them away as if nothing had happened. She didn't say a word. I lost time and $100, and she didn't even apologize for her kids. We had a board where customers could post their announcements. When our colleague died, we decided to take down all the announcements for a week and turn the board into a memorial. But one of our customers was very upset about this. She started yelling at us for taking down her announcement. and said she didn't care about our stupid memorial. One of our employees was so upset that she cried until the end of her shift. I worked at a grocery store, not fast food. Once, an old lady was pushing her cart across the parking lot and accidentally let it go. Since there was a slight slope, the cart quickly sped down and crashed into someone's car. The owner was inside. The driver got out and started yelling at the old lady. But the granny didn't lose her nerve and began to blame me, who was standing a few meters away from her, saying I had pushed the cart. Luckily, the guy realized it wasn't me and asked again, "So whose cart is this?" The granny said it wasn't hers. Then he shrugged and said, "Guess it's nobody's," and started loading all the groceries from the cart into his car. Then he drove off, and she didn't say a word. If the car owner had been a bit more trusting, it would have ended very badly for me. I once worked at a Burger King that closed at 2 in the morning. Our manager was a pretty sensible elderly woman who had been with the company for many years. Before closing, we were always down to just 2 people, and it was usually her and me. We worked from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. 2 weeks after I started the job, I saw her sitting sadly by the phone, quietly crying. It was very unlike her. It turned out that her eldest daughter had gone into difficult premature labor, and there was no one around to help her. None of the managers in our area agreed to come and replace her at that time, and the company didn't care. They told her, "It's part of your job." She cried until closing time. As soon as the clock struck 2 a.m., we immediately left the place, ignoring all the rules. To hell with all the corporate guys who think we're supposed to sacrifice our children for their shitty burgers. A coworker came up to me and said he was a real gangster. I replied, "Come on, Troy, you're no gangster." Then he pulled a Glock out of his pants. Well, it turned out he really was a gangster. By the way, he was later arrested in that same McDonald's. Does Starbucks count? A woman complained that her latte didn't have enough room for cream and sugar. I made a new coffee. Then she got back in line and said I had poured too much again. I listened to her. Then she decided to yell at me for dumping her previous coffee, thus harming the environment. Apparently, I was supposed to resell it. Then she complained that I didn't pour enough coffee. At this point, our manager stepped in and asked her to leave because she was causing a long line. Not enough room for cream and sugar. How cool would it be if we had a way to add a little space in a cup of liquid? Why couldn't she just drink a little? Because some people like to feel powerful. Believe me, I worked at Starbucks for 2 years. Sometimes I had to remake drinks 4 times because of such nonsense. We had money go missing from the register, and since I was the newest employee, everyone immediately suspected me. Because I had a great team, I heard all sorts of things about myself. But then we found out who actually stole the money, and everyone apologized to me, though it didn't make me feel much better. I don't know if you remember, but McDonald's used to have burgers with cheddar and fried onions. We always had a separate heated tray for the fried onions. One day, my colleague came to work in a foul mood. He loved chewing tobacco at work, which was already pretty gross, and decided it would be a great idea to spit it onto the tray of onions. He did this almost his entire shift, but by the end of the day, someone checked the cameras and caught him. He was immediately fired. Unfortunately, I don't know if they did anything about the burgers that got contaminated with that stuff. Once I was at a mall, not on shift, and some guy came up to me and said I forgot to add sauce to his burrito. I worked at McDrive. I handed a woman her order. About 5 meters from us was a trash can with a sign that said, "Please do not litter." You can probably guess what happened next. She threw the packaging right in front of my nose. As she started to drive away, I blurted out, "Are you kidding me?" A second later, I heard tires screeching. She backed up, jumped out of the car, and started yelling at me. "What did you just say? Don't act like an angel. You probably litter everywhere yourself." I pointed to the sign and said, "No, I throw trash in the trash can like normal people. Have a nice day, and close the window. Luckily, I had a reasonable manager who understood and did nothing to me. In high school, I worked as a cleaner in a movie theater. After screenings, I had to walk between rows and pick up all the trash. One time, I checked a cup holder and found a full cup without a lid. It turned out someone had used it instead of the restroom. The most memorable incident was when a customer came up to me and asked for avocado next to her sandwich. I warned her in advance that our avocados were not ripe yet and that they tasted more like plastic. She responded, "That's okay." So I cut one avocado and put it next to her sandwich as she asked. An hour later, she called our management, complained that we sold her an unripe avocado, and was very dissatisfied. People are stupid. A big guy in an old bucket of a car drove up to my window and tried to use coupons that expired a year ago. I didn't take them. That was a big mistake. The guy refused to leave and cussed me out. At one point he yelled, "You better wise up soon, kid, or you'll never achieve anything in life." At first I was very upset, but then I realized that a guy who yells at a 15-year-old McDonald's worker probably isn't going to achieve much either. I work at a gas station. One time, my colleague got the idea to clean all the coffee machines. Usually, we use a special cleaning liquid for this, but my not-so-bright coworker decided to use bleach. She completely filled them with bleach, then drained it and rinsed them a bit. The next morning, I poured myself a coffee and smelled something strange. If I hadn't done that, some of our customers would have had to drink bleach. A customer complained that we messed up her order. She called us an hour after leaving and asked us to remake everything and refund her money. She wouldn't accept the answer, "We won't do that." Eventually, I had to refer her to the regional manager. Ridiculous. I worked at Subway. Some guy came in and loudly demanded that I pour sriracha hot sauce on his sandwich. I poured as much as I usually do. He asked for more. I poured more. He asked for more. A few seconds later, he was yelling at me to add more. I emptied the entire bottle into his sandwich, but it still wasn't enough for him. I went to get a new one. After 1.5 bottles of hot sauce, he was finally satisfied. I still remember that customer. Watch other videos at our channel.